Hey, this is Patrick Rogers, and today we have the pleasure of having Roy Kirchner as a guest on the show. And Roy is the CEO of Ultimate 3D Printing Store. Welcome to the show, Roy.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, you bet, man. So a little bit about Roy. He lives in Odessa, Florida. Started Ultimate 3D in 2015, and in 2022 was named the 22nd fastest growing company by Fast 50. Roy has established himself as one of the preeminent sales experts in the US, particularly in the automotive, high tech, and new product sectors. Roy's entrepreneurial success dates back 2 decades when he catapulted to the top of sales and management in the Tampa Bay automobile industry. So again, Roy, great to have you. You're a mover and a shaker. Before we dive into the meat of your journey and your 3D ultimate printing, what's one interesting fact that not many people know about you?
When I was 15 years old, I climbed the Sun and the Moon Pyramid. It's in between Mexico City and Acapulco,
Uh-huh.
and it was definitely unique.
What was unique about it, man?
The steps are really high, so it's not like regular stepping. It's kind of taking like 3.5 steps. Or 3.5 gigantic steps that you're more climbing, not stepping.
Oh wow. Was it like at all ever dangerous? Like was there ever could it be like how hard would it be to just accidentally misstep and then you're like freaking I don't know, is it could you get really hurt doing this thing?
I don't think you could get really hurt, but it's definitely if you're scared of heights, getting up to the top. I mean, feels like you're in the sky. So it's
Yeah.
you're definitely up there, and it's not something that takes 5 minutes. It's more like half a day.
Oh, no shit. Okay, so this is
Yeah,
like a huge pyramids. Okay, I'm
yeah, kind
thinking
of
of
like I think the closest you can get to Egypt. Without going to Egypt, these were extremely high pyramids.
Oh, I had no idea. For some reason, when you mentioned it, I was thinking like the Chichen Itza, the ones down in like, Tulum area where they're like, it would take like just a couple minutes to get to the top. This is like no shit pyramids. Wow.
Yeah, 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 pretty high.
Very
Absolutely.
cool. Awesome, man. Awesome. So tell us about Ultimate 3D. What do you guys do?
We specialize in 3D printing, which some people know as additive manufacturing. So when it comes to larger Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 companies, they'll call the technology additive manufacturing, but most people know it as 3D printing. So we specialize in selling the technology, as well as we've branched into consulting and printing services for companies and individuals. So we basically there's think of me as the Walmart of additive manufacturing, 3D printing. We look for the best manufacturers, and then we bring them aboard and sell their technology or integrate their technology into everyday people and businesses to save them time and money.
Wow. So how did you get into this? Because you were in kind of, you know, talking about your resume, you were in mainly like marketing, direct marketing, different companies, things like that. How did you get into this?
Yeah, I was in marketing and advertising for automotive
Right.
car dealers. And before that, I was in the auto industry. And
Right.
literally, we were looking after '08, we were looking to diversify and looking to find another vertical, always have different verticals as an entrepreneur. And believe it or not, I went into a place called a hackerspace, and I saw my first 3D printer, and all I remember is staring at this thing because it was making something. And
Right.
next thing you know, somebody taps me on the shoulder and they say, sir, we're closing down for the night. And I'm like, yeah, but
Uh-huh.
it's not done printing. And they were like,
Right.
well, print it will finish in the middle of the night. And I just couldn't take my eyes off of it. And literally left there, started really studying it, understanding it. And that was in 2014. And then
Wow.
just really really understood what it was going to do, how it was going to change the world,
Hmm.
and started buying printers, messing with them, taking them apart, and realized that there's a gigantic opportunity to to be in this vertical and to be one of the first into the vertical where it was going to be more mainstream.
Yeah. So that one experience, you saw this machine, everybody was leaving, and this machine was going to finish the manufacturing of the product overnight. You saw that and like, wow, that's something that's going to change mankind. This is going to change manufacturing overall.
Absolutely, because I mean, you're looking at something and there was nothing there, and it's building something from nothing. So you're just looking at, this thing going around, and all of a sudden it's building something, and it's building something that you're going to be able to use.
Yeah, and additive manufacturing, as you were helping me understand when we were doing our pre-call, that's basically the technical, the industry term for 3D printing. I wasn't aware of that, but I mean, yeah, it's totally changing how we as mankind make things everywhere. Is there a specific niche? So you were in the automotive industry before. Is there a specific niche now that you're really focused on?
No, I mean, it's very unique, and it's I think of it as, I started my career in selling cars, and when you're selling cars, people come in all the time to buy a car, and you meet numerous different people all the time. So in the morning, somebody could come in and they own a dry cleaning store. In the afternoon, somebody could come in and they're a plumber. With this business, it reminds me of that. I mean, we sell machines and do consulting and printing services for regular tinker hobbyists, regular consumers, small, medium, and large businesses, Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 businesses, schools, colleges, libraries, educational facilities. And then we're also an FDA licensed facility where we have a branch that's in the dental industry. So we work with dentists and dental labs, showing them the technology as well.
What are they doing at a dentist lab for? Like creating tools or creating?
No, so what you're capable of doing in dentistry now is we have 32 approved FDA resins that actually make things that go in your mouth, from
So the actual
aligners,
teeth?
yeah, teeth,
No, liner.
permanent,
Holy shit! Wow,
crown
that's
and
awesome.
bridges, custom trays, aligners, all those types of things.
So they can create it, because it used to be, right, they take a mold and they send it off to some company. So this, what you're talking about, is even, some places they can actually make it right there at their location.
You're talking about
Potentially.
digital dentistry and
Yeah.
same day dentistry. Yeah.
Wow.
So you
That's
could break
crazy.
your tooth, literally go into a dentist that has this type of technology.
And boom.
And then they could literally, by the time the day's over, repair your mouth, and you're
That's
on your way.
awesome. Wow, very cool. And the other thing that you had mentioned before is that it's zero waste, right? Which is, in this today's day environment, of course, we should all be, cognizant of the environment, but as far as sustainability goes, that's also another game changer, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because manufacturing's been around since the dawn of time, but most of the time you're thinking of subtractive manufacturing, which is cutting into something. So you have a
Yeah.
block, you cut
Right.
into it, and
Right.
then there's
There's
waste.
leftover, there's waste, right?
Yep. Additive manufacturing, 3D printing is literally, that's exactly what it is. There's nothing there, and it creates something, and typically there's zero waste.
Yeah. Wow, man. So where are you guys at now? So you started this in 2015. You're the fastest growing company. How, give our listeners an idea of how big are you guys? How many employees you guys at now?
Yeah, so I mean, in really COVID kind of turned us on,
Yeah.
is what I would say.
Okay.
Um, Before COVID, we were in a 1,900 square foot facility.
Uh-huh.
We were getting about 7 to 10 calls a day, and we had 4 employees. COVID shut down the country, and it was like a lightning bolt for us. We went from 7 to 10 calls a day to 200 calls a day.
Holy cow.
Like literally overnight. We moved from a 1,900 square foot facility to occupying a 65,000 square foot facility. And at that time, we moved from 4 employees up to 36 employees.
So what was it that Why? What about your industry did COVID cause it to just have that dramatic effect?
I think what happened is, one, consumer side, they were looking to subsidize their income. So they were able to buy a 3D printer, or we also sell laser cutters. And think of it kind of as like a business in a box. You buy a laser cutter or you buy a 3D printer, you find a niche to make something. You can pop open like an Etsy store online and start selling that product and subsidizing your income. So when you're sitting at home and you're not making any money and COVID has shut down the country, this is a way to stay busy and get a return on your investment. And the ROI is significant. So you're literally the manufacturer of what you're making, which means you're even, some people call it, you can buy stuff from a wholesaler and resell it, but when you're the manufacturer, you're literally getting it at the most cost effective measure because you're manufacturing. So we saw that, and then we saw businesses, it kind of aligned. You would talk to a business that says, hey, listen, we
Mhm.
can't get something,
Mhm.
country shut down or supply
Yeah.
chain issues.
Yeah.
And they would call us and say, is there a way for us to make this? And they were able to. And then what happens is, that's a business owner telling another business
Right.
owner has
Right.
the same problem. And it just goes on and on and on, where they started saying, somebody would say, yeah, I fixed my problem with 3D printing, additive manufacturing, and I think you may be able to too. And it drove it up from there. Absolutely.
Wow. So overnight, you went from 4 to 34 employees in less than, 36 employees in like less than 2-3 months, I think you said. And
Yeah, it
and
was
it
less
was
than 6 months.
It's
It was
crazy.
definitely less than 6 months. But it was job security for everybody. And it was, at a time it was very unique because, some people were dying. They don't have any money coming in, and we're doing more business than we've ever done. And then on
Yeah.
top of that, people were using the technology to make PPE, personal protection equipment. So you saw that as well. And it was
Okay.
always in the news like every day.
Gotcha. Okay. Gotcha. That makes a lot of sense. So that's a huge change. 3 to 6 months, whatever. I mean, you're going from 4 to 36 employees. That's insane. A whole new facility.
Yeah,
How
so
did you handle? Uh-huh.
2021, we became the sixth fastest growing company in Tampa Bay by the Tampa Bay Business Journal.
Okay.
And then made it in 2022, we became number 22. So we were
Right.
still 2 years in a row, we were
Yeah. Okay.
in the top 50 fastest growing companies privately held in Tampa Bay.
Gotcha. Okay. So I missed it. I missed that on 2021. So how do you handle that scaling? I know we had talked about before that scaling is not as easy as anyone would ever think. And you just basically, usually when I see companies that have that kind of a hockey curve, right? Entrepreneurs are not really ready to absorb that, and they get too big for their britches. Walk us through, like, how did you handle that scaling? Like, what did you do specifically to be able to have big enough britches to handle that? What did you guys do?
I guess you would say, at that point in time, it wasn't, you always want what is called controlled chaos. It was just
Yeah.
chaos because that's how much business was coming in.
Yeah, totally.
So I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I was just going with you. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of it you're really working, as an entrepreneur, as the owner, you're working literally 7 days a week. And you don't have time to think about those things. So you're just literally getting things done. You're wherever there's a gap, whatever needs to be done, you're getting done. And it's like you said, it's extremely challenging. You also have a virus out there, so scaling. You're talking about
Yeah,
trying to protect everybody as well, and
right.
trying to hire the right people, and all those types of things.
Did you have any kind of overarching systems, or, how systematized was your business at 4 employees? Typically somebody at 4 employees is not very systematized, right? They're kind of string laced, just kind of duct taping things together, right? And then people at 34 employees, they've gone through like a learning curve and have been beaten over the head so many times by not having things like systems. So talk us through that. How was that for you?
Yeah, I think believe it or not, I think when you're that quick,
Yeah.
not necessarily the systems,
Yeah.
it's having micromanagers, because you're literally not having the ability sometimes to even have the proper time to train somebody. So it's really breaking it down and just kind of having somebody pay attention and micromanage at that point in time. Once you know once it, I would say, leveled off and it
Yeah.
was a certain amount and you can maintain, that's when you start really, looking at things and start trying to put systems in place and things of that nature. Absolutely.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, at first, when micromanage, that's like the evil anti growth word, right? But in your case, it was like, well, I had to, we had to, whoever you and your leaders were. Was it? Did you have a team? Did you reach out and find people from the industry, from the 3D printing industry, to bring you in as you scaled through this?
No, no. So
No.
I mean, that's
Okay.
that's the whole thing about additive manufacturing is there's no school for this.
It's so new.
So it's so new, and a lot of it, I call
Shit.
yourself definitely a true entrepreneur. Just like you're talking about, you can go and you can possibly buy into a franchise, and there's policies, procedures, manuals, different things like that, that are there. When you're in a brand new business and in
Yeah.
a brand new technology, you're creating those things. You're creating them, and it's very challenging. It's very
Yeah, man.
challenging.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, and on top of that, I think you said at one point you actually, like, when you got announced, one of them, that you were one of the fastest companies. I forget if it was 21 or 22. You actually came down with COVID.
Yeah. So what ended up happening is in 2021, the country got shut down in March of 2020. Um,
Right.
Believe it or not, I didn't get COVID at that point in time.
Sure.
Really, none of my staff got it. But in 2021, when we became the sixth fastest growing company, when we were actually announced the sixth fastest growing company by Tampa Bay Business Journal, I had no idea. At that exact time, that exact day, I was literally sitting in the hospital, in a room, and the doctor walked in, and I was so bad off that he said, "I don't know, Roy, if you're going to live or die."
Damn.
It was truly crazy. So at that point in time, I didn't even know we had gotten awarded the sixth fastest growing company in Tampa Bay.
Oh, wow.
I had pretty much abandoned the company completely. And at that point in time, I lost 23 pounds in 11 days.
Holy
I
crud.
I was I was definitely, when I got to the hospital, four guys threw me on a gurney, started double IVs. And this was kind of crazy because I had literally in my entire life, I had never been in the hospital in my entire life. So
Yeah.
I've never gotten sick. I work out 6 days a week. This thing like literally brought me to my knees.
Dang. Dang. So how, I think you said before, like, you were, it was almost like you're being kidnapped away from your business, away from family, away from loved one. You couldn't really communicate, that you couldn't function. Had like 2 days of food. You have no one there. You start looking at life in a different way. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, I kind of said it to you in our pre-call.
Yeah.
Um, the only way I could explain at that point in time for me in my life, um, I'm sitting in a hospital bed. Um, they really don't want to come in the room unless they're like in a full hazmat
Absolutely
suit,
have to.
because
Right. Right.
you're infectious. So at that point in time, no family, no friends can come in. I had this unbelievable it would be like somebody was frying eggs on my head. So your head hurts so bad that if you walked in the room and said, Roy, I could cut off your arms and your legs and it would stop the pain in your head, I would say cut them off. That's how painful it was. So you're sitting there and all you
Right.
have is your thoughts at
Yeah.
that point in time in life. It would be like me taking you and literally just kidnapping you, taking you out to a field and throwing you in a hole and saying, here's 2 days worth of food.
Here
And
you
I don't
go.
know if I'm going to come back, and I don't know if you're going to live or die. That's going to be something I'll just decide. So you're sitting in this hole and all you have is your thoughts, man. All you have is you're replaying your entire life, what you've done, who you are, all these types of things. It's a very unique moment. You know, and you look at life in a different perspective. And for anybody I've ever talked to about it, you really, unless you've been there, you can't, you know, how many people get kidnapped and thrown in a hole and told, like, you don't know if you're going to live or die. Because that's where I was. I mean, that's literally didn't know if the medicine was going to work, didn't know if I was going to get better. You know, it was, I didn't look myself. I had, like I said, lost a lot of weight, was extremely weak, could hardly keep anything down. Because of course you lost your taste and your smell. And you know, you're just sitting there with your thoughts, and it makes you look at life in a different way.
So what, man, that is insane. I know a few friends that have had somewhat similar circumstances, but man, that's just crazy. And they wouldn't allow you couldn't have visitors, right? It was only phone only. Yeah.
Only phone, and really it was very hard because my head hurt so bad to really be able to talk to somebody.
You didn't want to, right?
Because you know, you're already in pain. You know, and like I said, I was in so much pain that you could come and say, I'll cut your arms and your legs off, and I would tell you,
like,
yes,
whatever,
please.
do it.
Yeah, because it hurts so bad.
So how has that changed? And I'd love to dive into personal and professional, from your business standpoint, how that experience changed the business side. But on the personal side, going through that, man, how has that changed how you look at life and just even on a personal level?
It does. It was unique at that point in time because, of course, everything flashes in front of your eye. You're looking at, you know, wow, I didn't do this, I didn't do that. I'm lucky enough that I met my soulmate, the love of my life, and it was so unbelievable because when I ended up sitting down and having a conversation with my wife about this, I when you're an entrepreneur, you're spending an enormous amount of time, effort, and consideration. It's just you're a different person. You know, it's not a 9 to 5 job. You're working hard. Nothing comes easy in this world. So, you know, I sat down with my wife and I said to her, I said, you know, sweetie, I apologize. I don't give you enough time.
Wow.
And it was amazing what she said to me. This is exactly what she said to me. She said, I know who I married. I know who you are. And I know you so well that you ain't got to apologize for anything because
awesome.
I knew who you were before I married you. And I know what you want and what type of person you are and how much time, effort, and dedication you put into things. So it was very unique, but you still look at it and you know that having a soulmate, that's everything in this world.
You're like, hell
you know,
dude, that's awesome.
He's my everything. And you have to, I think the hardest thing about being an entrepreneur, and anybody that doesn't say this, they're flat out lying, is it's the yin and the yang. It's that mixture. You're trying to have that balance. You know, you're trying to balance life. You're trying to balance your personal life.
Absolutely.
You're trying to balance your business life. And it's a mixture that is very it seems like one would be better than the other. You know, your personal life's going great, but your business life is not as good. Your business life is great and your personal life is not as good. You're trying to balance that always. So that's what I can
Absolutely.
say it's definitely a mixture.
Yeah, man. Good for you. And it definitely is. It's a mixture between business and and your relationships. And then I'll even add yourself too, right? Because we as entrepreneurs, we need to have that self-care. Like you said, you work out a ton. I see so
Yeah.
many CEOs and upcoming leaders that, you know, if they don't have that triangle and balance between business, relationships at home, and self, too much in either direction can mess up one, right? If you spend too much of business, then you let go of relationships or your work. Well, now you have health problems or you have relationships and stress and all this other shit. So it's definitely a balancing act, man. Sounds like that was an experience that really helped you be even more cognizant of it. So what about how about your business, right? Because you were in the hospital for, I mean, it must have been a couple weeks, right? A week or
Yeah,
two.
I was in the hospital. I was almost out of the business. I would say almost 2 months.
Oh
And
shit. Okay.
literally, I 100% abandoned the business. I mean, I made a call and said, like, I'm not going to be able to answer any questions. I'm not going to be able to help you in any way. Um, you just got to make it happen. And you got to try to make it happen. Um,
Which
and
is very
so
interesting because I think most CEOs, depending on your business size, I don't mean to interrupt you, Roy. I just wanted to pop in here. Like most companies wouldn't be able to survive something like that unless they're positioned correctly. So they have a team of people that can do all the shit that you were doing before, right? Take us through that. Like you obviously were already positioned correctly so that you could, I mean, you went away for 2 months and then what ended up happening? How were you prepared for this?
yeah, I mean, I'm straight laced, man. It was we weren't positioned correctly. It
Okay.
was
All right.
just the guts of everybody I had working for me at that point in time. It was the time, effort, and consideration that they put in. It was, you know, I don't look at myself as a boss. I look at myself as a leader
Right.
of a team,
Yeah.
and it was, how do I say it, man? I must have done something right because my shortcomings of me not being there,
Yeah.
um, they made up for it.
Wow.
So that's got to tell you something to, you know, who I hired,
Yeah.
and who was part of the team, um, to really hold things together.
Right.
And of course, when I finally did come back, I mean, they held it together. I mean, there was band-aids in certain places, and I don't think they could have lasted another month without me at that point in time.
Okay.
But
All right.
it was they made it happen. So there's something to be said, like you said, about your team and your culture and
Yeah.
in how much time, effort, and consideration somebody will put in, how much they care. And that's something that
Yeah.
I think, with this type of technology and this type of, I guess you would say, leadership with me, people love what they do every single day. I've been lucky enough in my life that if I didn't want to do it, I don't do it. So everything I've ever done is because I enjoy what I do every single day. And there's a
Yeah.
lot of people out there that can't say that.
Yeah.
And I can say that. When I almost died, I did look at that and I said, you know what,
Yeah.
I can say that. I can look up and I can say that I've never done anything I don't want to do.
Right. No, that's awesome, man. So have you coming back, right? And so now you come back after 2 months of being gone and your team pulled this out, right? I mean, you've obviously done a good job, like you said, caring about them, leading, really caring and compassion about who they are. It sounds like. So when you came back,
Now, I'm going to say some of them.
some of
So
them,
please understand, there was some that, when I was in the hospital and
yeah,
on my deathbed, some of
yeah.
them said, wow, this place is going to go under,
Oh,
and
they're
got
out.
up
Okay.
and
All right.
walked
Fair
out.
enough.
I mean, like
Okay.
literally left that day
They
and said,
punched
man,
out. Oh shit, that
I think I
day?
have a job.
What?
So
That's awesome.
you have all different types of people out there. So I would say what you would call, your SLT, your senior leadership team was there.
Yeah.
It came together. But
So when you came back, what changes did that experience influence you or motivate you to make any changes in your business going forward?
Tremendously, tremendously. It was when you're a technology company
Uh-huh.
and you're growing at a rapid pace, certain things can happen. And they did happen,
Yeah.
So there was a couple times that during this scaling, people realized who we were.
Yeah.
And I had some phone calls that came in and said, I would like to see all your financials. I'd like to put you on a private jet. I would like to sit down and talk to you and,
Yeah.
infuse money into your business.
Sure.
And,
Sure.
it becomes, necessarily where you're answering to a board of directors. One thing I realized is that's not me. I love what I do every single day, and I'm an entrepreneur, man. At
Uh-huh.
that point
Yeah.
in time, I didn't want to answer to somebody.
Right.
Could things change? You never know.
Yeah.
But at that point in time, I didn't want to. But you're also scaling when you're scaling that hard. When let's say you did take that money,
Yeah.
and there is a board of directors, they bring in people that are qualified to scale you that fast. They
Yeah.
bring in fixed people,
Sure.
So I
Sure.
mean, but business grows that fast. When you're doing it yourself, you try to. So you try to hire people that have scaled companies, and you try to put certain things in place. And some of them work, some of them didn't. Some of them, some of the people worked, some of the people didn't. So it's a lot harder when you're privately held, and you own your own business, and you're trying to find those people. And a lot of it is time, effort, and consideration, and figuring things out. Being very, very quick to make decisions as a technology company and being an entrepreneur. There was a time when I had a CFO that had come before working with
Uh-huh.
me. He worked for like the Detroit Pistons and the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Uh-huh.
And the one thing he sat and told me is he's like, wow, like when we make decisions take a lot of time.
Yeah.
They're thought out, they're planned, there's algorithms behind them.
Sure. Sure.
When you're in a technology business like mine, and things are moving at the speed of light,
You
you're
don't have
making
time for that.
decisions very quickly. So it's a whole different ball game. And you have to remember, there's no book for this. There is no policies, there is no procedures, there is no manuals. You're the one making them.
Yeah.
So it's true. I say true entrepreneurship.
Absolutely. So so let me ask, if you were going to hire a CEO to take the reins for your company, what's the one book that you would require he or she read before taking over for you, and why?
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say traction.
Okay,
That's a
Gino. Yep.
Yep. So I was lucky enough to find a kind of a piece of traction. So I ended up finding a coach. His name is Coach Chris,
Awesome.
and he put systems in place, but then he created a system that's called System and Soul. So it's traction, which is the system, but
Uh-huh.
then he put the culture side in, which is soul.
Oh,
And I
wow. Very
love it
cool.
because
Yeah.
it was like the piece that was missing, and he put that piece in.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing is your people, your soul,
Sure. Sure.
your culture, the way you take care of your people, and the way they believe in what they're doing every single day. So we went with System and Soul, and
Awesome.
really have started putting that in place.
Awesome. So it sounds like, because I mean, traction is obviously it's EOS, and that's really, and I've had these conversations with a lot of people. That's kind of like a business centric model, operational centric, if you will. And it sounds like, and that's one of the things that where I think EOS, it's a great system. If you're scaling, getting on your way to 5 million, like you need something to operationally systematize your company. But one of the areas that it kind of like lacks off or leaves off is creating that culture. And it sounds like you're working with somebody that kind of filled that gap, which is fantastic. Um, so what's next on the horizon for 3D for your company?
Man, look at the three top verticals in the world right now. Artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, and additive manufacturing. So, the biggest thing that we're trying to do is make it so that people realize the technology is here and it can save them time and money, and it can help them be recession proof. It can help them with supply chain problems. It can help an entrepreneur or somebody that wants to become an entrepreneur. It can help them be that entrepreneur. Just like we kind of talked about with building your own business. So it's there. I truly want and we need people to understand how much this will help them and how much this will change their life. I do believe that we're tremendously behind the times compared to some other places. So we talk about the regular consumer. If me and you right now, we went down the street to the local mall and we took a clipboard with a piece of paper, old school, right? And we just started asking, excuse me, ma'am, excuse me, sir, what do you know about 3D printing? They're going to say they know it. They do. They've seen it.
And that's it. Right. Sure.
Yeah. They've just seen it. But then me and you jump on a plane and we go to the UK. Okay. We go over to the UK and we go to a mall and we do the exact same thing.
Right.
The difference is, this is what they say. They say, it's in our business. It's not in my department, but it's in this department. It does this, this, and this. A friend of mine has one. He does this, this, and this. Another friend of mine has one. He does this, this, and this. And oh, by the way, my son in school, they got one, and this is what they're doing. So it's so much the calm moments before the storm. There's so much opportunity. And I was lucky enough, I say privileged enough, to get into it in 2015 because I made relationships with people and businesses that as long as you do what you say you're going to do, and as long as you take care of them before, during, and after the sale, those relationships will last for decades to come.
Yeah. I mean, we could spend a whole show or a couple shows even just talking about taking care of the client. Yeah, totally true. Awesome, man. Well, hey, Roy, it was awesome having you on the show. I always like to ask if there was one takeaway that you would really want the audience to absorb, up and coming leaders, aspiring CEOs or CEOs growing their company, what would that be?
I would say it really is getting a system put in place.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of like you could, even when you're small, so you talk about scaling, but even when you're small, just to get organized, to understand, systems and how to even have a proper meeting, even if you're a smaller business, I truly believe it's like, that's one thing that people need to understand is that is out there. That there is, like, you're not reinventing the wheel in that way. You just need to find it and start using it. If I used it earlier, if I used it earlier, I can't even tell you where I'd be right now. Like if I would have put it in, I wake up every morning thinking that, and you don't regret anything, but man, if I would have found it earlier, let me tell you what, this would be a different conversation.
Yeah, I bet.
So, but it's still going to be a different conversation 2 years from now. So,
right, totally. Well, sometimes we have to learn lessons the hard way or else we never learn the lesson, right? So, and it sounds like you had those experiences that kind of influence that. So, awesome. Well, hey, Roy, if any of our listeners wanted to reach out and get a hold of you, either to utilize your services, 3D services, or for any follow-up questions from the podcast, how could they do that?
Yeah, so if they're looking for, to understand the business side of it, ultimate3dprintingstore.com is our website.
Awesome.
If they're trying to get a hold of me, probably LinkedIn would be the best. Go on to LinkedIn and grab and connect with me and message me there.
And what's your do you know your LinkedIn handle offline, or is it just have them type in Roy Kirchner and they'll be
Yeah,
able to
it's
find
nice
you?
that I got it. Not many people have my name, and I got it early, so it's just Roy Kirchner.
Awesome. Very cool. Awesome. Well, hey, Roy, thanks again for being on the show. This was just so many awesome nuggets there. And for the listeners, please hit like and subscribe and help us spread the word about the show and what we're doing here. With that, Roy, thanks again for being on. And listeners, we'll see you on the next episode.
All right, my friend.